Okay.
Well, hello, and a very warm welcome back to the Andrew Eborn Show with me, Andrew Eborn, and my good chum over here. We've got the wonderful Errol Musk. How are you doing, Errol?
Well, good, thanks. And you?
Good, not too
Good.
bad. We were talking about Japan because I'm
Yeah.
off there in a few days' time with my good friends from Dentsu and Phoenix, filming over there and helping to broker some rights. You telling me about your trip to Japan?
No, in 1983, we were in Hong Kong. Myself, Elon, and Kimball and Tosca, my children. And Elon was about 12. And I decided we're going to go to Japan. I had been in Hong Kong to see, we'd actually been into mainland China to see manufacturers there who were allowed to produce Hong Kong people who factory people who were allowed to produce things in mainland China at that time. It was a sort of a special dispensation. But it was at the beginning of, I would say, the China that we know today. Anyway, we wanted to go to Japan, and you had to get a yellow fever injection.
Right.
And so I mean, how this was going to make any difference, I don't know. But you had to get an injection, but then you could go. I don't know how that works. But anyway, we took Elon to, I took the kids to this clinic, and we couldn't get Elon through the door. We just could not get him through the door. I mean, no one could get him through the door. He saw the needle on the other side and he said, no way, no way, no way. He's not going to do this. And he spread himself out across the door. And no matter how hard we pushed, nobody could get him through the door. He kept on grabbing and hanging and everything. So we decided, look, forget it. We're not going to Japan. So we never went to Japan because he didn't want to get an injection.
How funny.
Not
Have
that
you been
idea at all.
have you been since?
No, no, no,
Never.
no.
You've never been to Japan after
You
all
know,
of that.
eh?
Elon
Sorry?
Elon must have been a few times though.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. No, he's been there. I think one of the first uh, Tesla Roadsters was given to Toyota. He met Toyota. The people who started Toyota, and the family's actually Toyota. And he met Mr. Toyota, and he presented Mr. Toyota with a Tesla Roadster.
Ah.
Yeah, free, obviously. I mean, and yeah, so he's been there a lot, obviously, and they really like him, So they admire him for what he's done because Toyota was always the number one, and since then it's been Tesla.
Yeah, oh
Yeah.
no, absolutely. Well, I worked very closely with Toyota and I say the advertising agency Dentsu. So we did things from like their sponsorship, the match play for the golf, but also that they used to do lots of artists on, so people like Phil Collins and various others who would help them with their sponsorship deals. So and did something called Formula Nippon, which was basically to encourage people to like a feeder for Formula One. And Toyota obviously massive and in Formula One and various other sports as well. So no, fond memories. Well, I'll be there for a couple of weeks. I'll try and get you even remotely. We'll get you down there
Do
somewhere.
you use sign language, or what do you do when you're there? Do you
Oh
use
well,
sign language?
I know what I try to do is just pick up a few words, which is
No.
good. And well, I used to go in the early 90s when it's very rare that you would have any. Quite tall. I'm sort of about probably about 6'3". How tall are you? You're about the same, aren't you?
No, I'm about 6'1".
Oh, okay. There you go. Well,
Six
there we
one,
are.
yeah.
But Elon's tall, but so I'm relatively tall, and so I look like a giant for
No,
for
Elon's
some of
six
these
three.
meetings.
No, six
Yeah,
three is tall.
yeah,
Elon is 6'3", and
yeah.
Kimball 6'4".
Right, there you
Yeah.
go. So you put a bit more effort into Kimball, then, is that right?
I think he drank more milk.
No, but it's wonderful. And what I love is like the cultural differences there. It's just a glorious thing. So I helped take karaoke in the early days of laser karaoke pioneer. I helped bring that to the UK with them, and I took Peter Rabbit over to Japan and help, as I say, with Formula One and various other things. Did the very first computer game rights to Formula One with them. So I love Japan. I love the culture. I love the people, and spent a good deal of time. But you've had some great events. I mean, Elon's had some great events this week. We had We Robot. We should celebrate that. Hey, I've got a popper. Here we go. There you go. Celebrate We Robot. Did you see it? Did you
Yes,
see
yes,
the
yes,
event?
yes, yes,
It
yes.
was it was great. What I loved about it as well, they did three things, didn't they? Did the taxi, the robo van, and the We Robot. What are you
Yeah.
most excited by?
Well, all three are absolutely extraordinary. I mean, I can't understand why. I read that Tesla investors were not impressed or something. I mean, that's cannot be. It just cannot be. And as a result, the share price took a bit of a dip. But I can't understand it. It makes no sense whatsoever. I mean, the things that Elon showed were what people have dreamed about for years, and I mean, it just. I don't know. Once we understand people, we can perhaps retire and all go and lie down somewhere.
I know, but you're right. I saw some fabulous things. I mean, they had this. Well, it was at the Warner Brothers studios, wasn't it? They emphasized the futuristic design, no pedals or steering wheel, wing-like doors. I thought it looked sensational. But you're right. The shares dropped not just a little bit, 8%, 8% following the
Yeah.
announcement. And Uber and Lyft saw their stocks rise by 10%. I've no idea. I looked at some of the analysis before we went on. They say they were wanting more detail. I'm not quite sure what more detail you wanted, other than this is the future. And they were also a bit concerned about safety. What are your views on that?
Well, I think first of all, it's kind of overwhelming. So the first thing that people do when they're confronted with an overwhelming situation is they try to play it down, because it's difficult to. In a sense, you don't want to get excited and then it turns out to be a damn squib, So and then you look a fool. So no, I think people are trying to take it in, and I imagine they will take it in, in a few days. The things that Elon showed were so far beyond the nearest competitor, or light years. Let's call it light years beyond any competitor. And of course, that means that the competitors that are there are going to do what they can to downplay what Tesla has shown. I mean, it takes a bit of time for them to swallow their pride, but they will have to swallow their pride. But I must just say, that as far as self-driving is concerned, I have mentioned this before. At the end of 2015, I was collected at Denver Airport by my son Kimball in a Model S Sport. And my two daughters and Kimball then rode back from Denver International Airport to the capital city, which is Boulder, about 45 miles away. And Kimball had his hands cupped under the steering wheel. This is 2015. I mean, how far back is that?
Right.
It's almost the Stone Age. And he said, "Look at this, Dad." And the car took us out of the parking, drove us through the correct, because Kimball had programmed where he wants to go to a special highway that allows you to go 75 miles an hour, which was at that time. At the moment, everybody in America is driving at 100 miles an hour. I don't know if you know that, for some obscure reason. I'll tell you about that in a minute. And we could go 75 miles an hour. So the car took us to this freeway and took us on the freeway. And all Kimball ever did during that time was hold his hands under the steering wheel and then touch the steering wheel. And then he said, we're still testing. And every drive we do adds to the sort of memory of the system, because it's a collective memory. It's some central computer, so there's some super brain dealing with this whole thing. So even a little drive with this car adds information to the big controlling mind of this thing. And when we approached some roadworks along the way, the car informed roadworks ahead, take over manual control of the car, which Kimball did. Then afterwards, the roadworks were gone. I think it may have said, resume. Do you want to resume? Like before, automatic driving. And he did. And then we drove us into his parking bay next to his house. So that was in 2015. And the reason they couldn't use it is because of people's safety. I mean, there is obviously, it's like an airplane autopilot. All airplanes have autopilots.
Yes.
Many airplanes crash, even though they've got autopilots, because of pilot error, and usually I'm a pilot, usually pilot error, and inputting the wrong information and so on, and not keeping a watch on the autopilot. You can't leave the autopilot and walk to the back of the plane and make yourself some coffee or something. You have to keep looking at the autopilot, So anyway, that was such a long time ago. And so I can only imagine they've made massive strides since then. And, I can't understand. Yes, obviously, there would still be the problem that the authorities have, and that is that if they okay something like this, they could have all lose their jobs because some idiot did something that nobody could even imagine anybody would do. But you'd get that, and you have had people driving the Tesla and with the auto drive that you can have, the autopilot you can have now, can have for some time, and then reading a book and then crashing into something. I mean, that's not right. Yeah. At the end of the day, of course, if it's a robotaxi, I mean, let's face it, it has to be a thing that you can read a book in. Yeah. The idea was you could play a round of rummy or whatever inside the car at the table while you're driving, while the car is taking you somewhere, and that's where they have to go. So it's a step-by-step situation. Yeah, and I mean, I must just tell you, recently I was in America, and I was driving on a long drive to Georgia. It's on the freeways, and the speed limit sign said 65 miles per hour. So I made my way to the fast lane, and I proceeded at 65 miles an hour. And I continued, and a massive amount of traffic on the freeways. I mean, just like continuous cars going, But anyway, and I never really looked in the rearview mirror much. But anyway, eventually I looked in the rearview mirror, and I see these flashing red and blue lights behind me. Oh, what have I done? What now? And then a big loudspeaker, sort of, I got the drift of what he wanted. So he sort of moved himself into the next lane so that I could move, and then the next lane, and finally we were on the shoulder on the far side where this beautifully mowed lawn you could drive off onto, and he said to me, "What do you think you're doing?" And I said, "Well, what do you mean?" He said, "I've been following you for 40 minutes, and you've been holding the traffic up." And I said, "But why? Well, I'm doing the speed limit." No. He says, "Nobody worries about the speed limit anymore." I said, "What? I mean, you're joking, I didn't say that." I said, "Oh, really?" He said, "Yes. If you want to go 65, you have to be in the very slow lane on the on the right, I think it is, and you can't be in the middle lane. You can't be on the middle. You can't be in the fast lane." And then I realized people in the fast lane all doing 80, 90, 100, 80, 90, 100. I loved it. So then I had a lovely vehicle. I moved over to the fast lane, and I started hitting the pedal, boy. And I was often doing 100 miles an hour. And I couldn't believe it. Because even in this country where you can go quite fast, because there's not that many cops around here. And the roads are not bad, so you can do it. But we are used to going maybe 80. Right. But not 100. Yeah. But there we are in America.
Well, it's like the Autobahn in Germany. Have you ever been on those as well, where you can go?
Yes, I have. But Germany's famous for that. America is not famous for that. Right. The speed limit in America was 55 miles per hour, as long as I can remember. And if you went over the speed limit, it was for every mile. It was like 56 is a fine, 57 is a fine, 58 is a fine. It wasn't like we do here, a jump of 10 or something like that. It was every 1 mile you got fined an extra amount. Yeah, so I didn't want any fines, and it was a rental car, and I didn't want trouble. Anyway, that's what happened.
Yeah, no, it's extraordinary, isn't it, looking around the world? But I love the idea of these cybercabs. It's predicted that it's going to be 2027 when the production is going to be start rolling out. But a lot of people on the market, they always put the pessimistic side. They say he's missed a lot of deadlines where people are a bit skeptical as a result of that.
That's Mother Grundy's, trying to make a name for themselves. I mean, they would have been during the Manhattan Project, if they would have been allowed to comment on that over the 4 years or so that it took to complete the Manhattan Project. They would have been on the newspaper every day saying, "Oh, this is no good. This is no good. This is no good. These guys don't know what they're doing." That's what they would have been doing. Yeah. So, we've got those people. They're the useless component of society.
Yeah. Well, but this is. I agree, Errol.
They're good for a joke.
This is what I think is so unfair is that I thought it was a fantastic event. I thought that you would see everybody get behind it and suddenly say rejoice in that success. I mean, we spoke about this before.
Yes, and it's too much. Too much. The robot would have been enough.
Yeah.
It's too much. People there's too much. There is the financial guys jumped into this right away, and I read a lot of their take from this, and the take was that this has added this is pretty heavy. The take from this, from the financial people, from the people who analyze things, this has added $1 trillion to the value of Tesla.
Wow.
Now figure that out.
Yeah, it's very easy. So if it's $1 trillion, how on earth does it go down 8%?
Well, it's people. You know, think of the events that you do. Probably some of the events that were the least well prepared had a good reception. Then you go and do a massively well prepared event, and everybody's down in the mouth.
Yeah.
And you wonder, well, what happened here? It was just maybe the weather. I don't know. But the thing is, people never try to anticipate people too much. They always have something new. But you know, that's who we are. And you know, if it's like I would go to my dad, you know, and I'd say to him, I think of, for example, when I developed myself and three other guys developed the biggest shopping center in South Africa at the time, and it still is actually the biggest shopping center. And to do that, I had to borrow the equivalent of $3 million. And it was in 1972, so this was an enormous amount of money. I mean, it was like $300 million or something. Now, if I'd gone to my dad, and I may have said to him, you know, over lunch or something, or dinner or something, Sunday lunch, I would have said, we borrowed. Well, I wouldn't have used the word dollars because he wouldn't have known what I'm talking about. We borrowed 2 million rands because the rand was worth more than the dollar then, you see. I borrowed 2 million rands this week. I mean, if he took that in, my old man, you know, it's a very, very, very withdrawn person from the war. He was never right, you know. He never stopped shaking. But anyway, he would have. I can only tell you now. My mother would have said, "That's nice," you know. My father would have said, "Oh, you know," he didn't swear or anything, but he would have said, you know, if he really took it in, I don't think he'd take it in. But if he did, he would have said, "What? You got to get away from those people. You get away from those people that you did. Who are these people? Get away from them. Get away from them. Go to another, you know, go and live somewhere in another town, somewhere. Don't tell them where you are." You know, this is his response. So that is people, you know, people. Yeah. It's my dad's dream in life was to earn £100 a month.
Right.
You know, to be able to do that seemed beyond everybody at the time. Of course, a lot of people struggled, but I mean, you know, so it's all the ability of people to absorb things.
Yeah,
you know,
and it always seems to be, Errol, as well, that there's a sort of pattern with these things, and I think it's always if you under promise and over deliver, then the market responds in a positive way.
Well, yes, but again, with it's like everything. Don't be too good looking. Don't be too beautiful. Don't be too well dressed. Don't be so far ahead of everybody else that no one can you know, let's say compare, or rather have to move into the shadow. Don't do that. Give people their own space, you know. And so it will obviously, if the financial fundis say this is going to add $1 trillion to SpaceX value, and they say that they don't mince words, then you have to take that as being mechanically
absolutely. Well, the other things they sort of talked about, because they talk about this getting a price of under $30,000. They say that they sort of question whether that's possible. I don't know on what basis they would do that.
Well, the robot.
Elon and his team have done their math, and they think under $30,000 is likely. What's your view
for the robot?
Well, this is for the Tesla, and they for the Cybercab price. They say that's going to be under $30,000.
No, it will be under $30,000. I'm not worried about that. No, definitely. Once you get into production, once production starts moving, it's another. You know, obviously things change, and you know, I mean, mass. You know, the more you sell, the less you can charge less, and you can do it cheaper. Let's say. The robots for $30,000 for your home, that's a bit much. But I would imagine again that, as you know, like when the first color TV came out, or nice TVs, or rather, let's just take simply the last when the flat TVs came out that you could hang on the wall. around about 2000 in our country. I mean, they were on the shelf for 30,000,
Yes.
40,000. You know what I mean? I mean, you can buy one now for 3,000.
Yeah,
you know,
it's the same with any
it's
technology.
better than the first one.
When you first start, it's really, really expensive. Like those tiny little plasma screens people used to have, they spend an absolute fortune on them, and now they're next to nothing. It's going to be the same with all
Well,
sorts
not
of
next to
technology.
nothing, but they easily, everyone's got one, let's say. So you can go into relatively the most humble household, and they've got a flat screen.
Yeah.
But in the beginning, we all just stood outside the windows looking at these things through the window, and saying, everybody's sort of saying, "Ooh, I'm going to buy one of those. I'm going to buy one."
Yeah.
Ooh, look at that! Imagine that. It's the same
No,
price.
you're absolutely, well, the
car.
costs undoubtedly go down. So that was one of the criticisms. The other thing was concern about regulators. Now, Elon's always famously having run in with regulators, but
well, obviously, I mean, the regulators are, it's like, I didn't say this. George Bernard Shaw said this. If you can't do, you teach.
Yes.
That was George Bernard.
You
can sort of
extend
that.
Do,
if
and
you
those
can't
that
do,
can't teach. That's right. Exactly. That's what he said.
And I would extend that and say, if you can't do, then you regulate.
Everyone's a critic. If you can't act, become a critic. That's what they say. Yes.
But everybody has their place. I mean, there is obviously a place for regulation. I mean, years ago, we would park our kids in the cars, and our cars could go just as fast as they do now. In fact, probably faster anyway. And kids would stand next to me, and Elon would stand next to me, in the passenger seat or something. He'd stand there, with his back against the seat. If I stopped, he went through the windshield. If I stopped suddenly. On one occasion, I did stop suddenly. It was a truck pickup, and he went forward and he cracked the windshield with his head. You see, that's probably why he is like he is. Anyway, cracked the windshield, and that was a lesson.
How old was he then?
Oh, he would have been about 6 or something. I don't know, 6 or 7. I told him he not to stand, but he wouldn't listen to me. You see, and and they still wouldn't listen if you didn't force them. So nowadays, with kids, you have to prop them all into little ones have to go into car seats and all that sort of stuff. And obviously, it's a good thing. I mean, it was never the case in the past. I mean, there were no seatbelts to start with. When Elon was a kid, there were no seatbelts.
Right.
So you didn't even have seatbelts. So it wasn't a question of put on your seatbelt. There are no seatbelts. And seatbelts came in later. And so that's regulation. And obviously, I think it's good. It's a very good thing. I mean, obviously,
Oh yeah, for safety and things like that. I mean, it's over regulation, which sort of
well, sometimes it is over regulation, but generally, I think it's important to have regulators. You can't not have regulators.
Yeah.
And you need to. It's something that they have to meet each other. Obviously, the manufacturers will be fighting the regulators a little bit, and the regulators will be fighting the manufacturers. And but I doubt if there's a single manufacturer who would say there should be no regulators.
Oh no, I
no
think
one would do that.
As you say, if it's about safety and things like that, so people like Elon don't stand up in the front seat. I think that's a good idea.
Yeah. Well, with aircraft particularly, I mean, regulation is very important. Everything has to be correctly done.
Yes.
I've been flying for 50 years. I've had 3 inadvertent contacts with the ground that I didn't expect. I survived. And, a lot of the times when things went wrong, it was due to people not adhering to the requirements, the regulations. And on big airplanes as well, you get the same thing, where cheap airlines tend to try and foil the regulators,
right,
to save money. And of course, that's not right. No. With the taxis, robotaxis, and self-driving cars, Elon and them will have to, and they will make it, as Elon said, it will be safer than the best driver. And that brings me to another point. When I started yachting, I bought this big yacht, 48-foot, and it had an autopilot, or rather, yes, an autopilot for rudder control, made in England, called Seafarer. And I looked at this thing. It was a very expensive setup, and I unfortunately got it with this yacht. I fortunately got it with this yacht. And anyway, I started reading it, and I started using it at sea. I noticed it worked very well. It just consumed quite a lot of electricity. That was the problem. But apart from that, it said in the beginning, you get the able seaman. His ability is, let's say, 1 at steering the yacht, and then you get the next one up, the bosun or something, and his ability is 3, and then you get the mate, and his ability is 5,
right,
and then you get the skipper, and his ability at helming is like 9 on the scale, you see, and then you get the seafarer, and that's like 480. And then you realize that what they're saying is that the seafarer is much better than any human being.
Yeah,
of course it is.
It's got to be true, and the same with these robots. It is the best version of ourselves, and as you say, you can't be 100% reliant. Although obviously with a taxi you'll need to be, but with the self-driving cars, you look at it like a co-pilot, if you like. It's a very good co-pilot, much better than you
are.
Well,
if you do that, you'd be much safer. But the idea with Elon is that you won't have to do that. You won't have to be a sort of a minder. You can, but as it is now with the ordinary Teslas, which we've got, which you can use. We don't use it much, but sometimes we do. You need to keep watching it. I mean, obviously, it's like an autopilot on an airplane, and the autopilots on the airplane are far better than pilots. Yes. I mean, the autopilot in the airplane can maintain your altitude within a foot, and it can maintain your yaw within about a yard, 3 feet. I mean, it's just extraordinary. No human being can do that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? No human being can do that. But the autopilot can do it. But you have to keep watching the autopilot.
Yeah.
And the same thing with these cars. They're going to the ones that exist at the moment. You have to keep looking and watching them all the time. It's there to assist you, to take a little bit of stress off you.
Yeah,
as I said,
that makes a lot of sense. And the other thing they talk about, these so-called experts, they say there were concerns about Tesla using a camera-based system as opposed to this radar lidar used by others.
Yes, I imagine in due course it will be a combination. The radar has worked out. The one that Elon's using has worked out better and safer and more accurate than the lidar or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
But no doubt that will pick up. That as they learn more and more, it will become more a combination, no doubt, of the two. I mean, there's no doubt about that. And nobody's going to turn away from any type of technology. They're going to look at every kind of technology. And the sort of things that worry me more than whether the cars are going to work properly, that's a given. No, I would say the kind of thing that worries me is, in many of the third world countries, especially sort of third world countries, I'm wrong in saying that. Maybe it's all the countries. The taxi driver, what about him?
You're right. Oh, these are the Luddites who resisted technology. This is what they sort of say. So you do worry about what's going to happen with all these jobs they're going to get rid of. What I also liked, though, Errol, was the Robovan as well, which seats 20 people, and that was good. And one of the things that they also say about that the difficulty is the competitive landscape. But having competition's good, isn't it? I mean, they talk about what Waymo and Uber and Baidu are expanding their autonomous fleets as well. That's got to be good for the whole industry, doesn't it?
Well, yes, of course. But again, I look at the taxi. It boils down to what I was saying a moment ago. I mean, if you're going to be replaced by a robotaxi, I don't know. Maybe you just have to buy a robotaxi. Then I don't know. But what I would say is this: when I've been around for quite a while, and my first cars I had in the 70s, and I was fortunate enough to even move on to things like Mercedes in the 70s, right at the beginning. But I had quite a few of the other cars, and it was always very easy to work on a car. So, everything was very easy, and you could go into a mechanic, and a lot of the men in my friend circle, we soon learned how you can fix a car, make it go faster, do everything once, and all that sort of stuff. And the mechanics were kept quite busy. with the work, not sufficiently with what they had to do to the cars. As the cars have gone on, it's now become a situation where you open the bonnet and you look at the car, the engine, you don't know what the hell you're looking at. You don't know what you're looking at. You just see a big black cover, with some name on it. And then you sort of touch it or lift it, tap it. And that's what you've got. And now you would have thought, well, now what's happened is it's gone over to modular components. Everything clips in and this and that and the other. And then a computer monitors things and all that sort of stuff. Now, ideally, that was meant to be that now you don't have to have all those mechanics and everything of the past, and you don't have to have all that knowledge that the average, guy had to have at his fingertips to show that he knows about cars and stuff. And what's the end result? The cars are more at workshops now than ever before because of these computer cars. Nobody can work on a car. They're forever going wrong. I've got a garage full here. I've got friends that they're forever a problem. I've got a GTI Golf, which actually belongs to me and which Yana uses. And the key suddenly decided that it's no longer, the car decided that this week the key's no longer, doesn't accept a key anymore.
Right.
So we spent the last 5 days with the car that standing, and no specialist around this area knows what to do. They don't know what to do. The car has made its own decision, and it's not accepting and we've got a brand new key just in case. Didn't accept a brand new key. So that's what I'm saying is the cars are more in now than they've ever been in. And when you go in for a service now, it's not the old £150. It's like £1,500.
I know it's absolutely great. Well, hopefully we're going to get to a stage where we can do it all remotely because you can work on that.
No. What I'm saying is jobs seem to, like entropy, they seem to come along. They seem to come along.
Every time you shut down one industry, another one starts up. And we always say the jobs
That's
that were around 40 years ago, 60% of the jobs we have today weren't around 40 years ago. So things will evolve. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll continue exploring the latest news. But for now, Errol, thanks for joining me.
Okay.